Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today I'm joined by Devon from Devon Talks Tabletop, here to talk
Hello.
about our top 10 playlists for board games. Devon, how are you today? What's going on?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Let's see. I mean, so much is going on. Wednesdays are busy content days. We do a live stream over on Board Game Co. So I got that done earlier, and we were hanging out. And then you and I talked not too long ago in another live stream, and that's how this was born.
Exactly. If you're unfamiliar with it, Devon is another YouTube content creator. Please go take a look at his channel. There's going to be links to everything that we talk about here in the description of this video. But Devon has a variety of features, unboxings, first impressions. Some of my favorite content that he puts out are his discussions on just board game related topics.
Oh,
So make sure
appreciate
that you go check out those. Devon, is there anything that you're excited that's coming out on your channel soon? And I see that you've got some construction in the back there. What's going on?
So, construction in the back, there used to be an entryway to the living room, and then that used to be an open entryway that is now a door, which is off camera too. So we are actually in the process of Daniel Burrow from Play the Game, who also is a Little Rock native. I do playthroughs with him and his wife Allison on their channel on Play the Game HQ. I helped him set up that studio, and he is returning the favor now. And he's helping me turn this into a more efficient office and also a home studio so that I don't have to travel to film my videos. So, because my studio is currently at a family member's house and I go drive 15 minutes or so to go do content. So we're going to be switching this around, and this is going to be my studio. I mean, besides that, so much other stuff is going on, doing things with Board Game Co. on his channel. I also work with Play the Game HQ. And I just did a podcast episode with Board Game Barbecue. So that just released yesterday, I think. I'm just doing maybe too many things.
Living that good board game life. I'm glad that you're getting to play games, but also you'll now have multiple platforms to talk about them. So let's get into our video today. It looks like you have a lot of your fans also here. Very excited to see what's going on in our video.
They're friends of mine, but I can't claim building the community. That's Alex and Meg over on Camp Co-op. But I just dropped a line and told them to swing out and swing over and hang out.
Perfect. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the main content of our video today. We're going to be talking about our top 10 playlist in board game. So this is going to be a combined top 10 list where we each have 5 soundtracks, playlists, albums that are paired with 5 of some of our favorite board games and talk about why we've chosen these music choices. Now, Devon, I want to quickly ask you before we get into it, what was the thought that you had going into creating the list for this?
So for me, I wanted to do a combination of video game soundtracks, which I really enjoy playing video games. I want to do a combination of movie soundtracks, which I also love. And then I also wanted to make sure I tried to do a little bit of, I approached this a little bit like a wine tasting, like a wine pairing, like wine and cheese pairing. And I tried to pick a game and then music that I would feel was in theme with it, even though it had no initial connection. Except I guess one of them has a pretty intense connection. But I was just trying to find a fun game and then music that went well.
That makes sense to me. For me, I try to think of my own experiences and what I turn on when I say, hey, Google, play blah, blah, blah. So if I'm asking something to play this, that's what I put on this list. Some of my favorite games, my favorite music to listen to while playing that. I think I can hear my Google in the background saying
it's like I don't understand the request here. Question, like, how often do you listen to music while you're playing games?
Almost 100% of the time, I would say.
Wow,
that's one of my game room necessities is a speaker for your game room. I think it's a big deal.
That's awesome. No, I think that I don't do it as much as I wish I could, or I wish that I remembered to. I think I wonder what your typical game group makeup is, because for mine, it's usually people who aren't as intensely into the hobby, outside of maybe like my wife and sister who play most frequently or have played for the longest amount of time with me. And so I'm usually much more like focused on teaching them the game. And so, but I do really have good memories of when I pair music and stuff. I have this awesome experience where we played Betrayal at House on the Hill, which was a long time ago. I had a really, really good time with it, but we turned the lights off. We put candles on. We played like some spooky, like a horror playlist in the background. And just the ambiance was really, really nice. And it was a fun time for sure.
That's one of the best words for it is ambiance. When we do our big Blood on the Clock Tower days, I love putting up this creepy soundtrack in the background. It's wonderful, really. It's mood setting. And I think that board game companies have taken this concept, this idea, and have started including it as part of their package. For example, Endless Winter and Sleeping Gods, they have included soundtracks with their games. I love that so much. There was a whole Steam campaign that was just soundtrack for 8 and Rising Sun. How cool is this to have dedicated board game soundtracks? That's awesome to me. But I'm not going to include any of those on this list. These are all things that I have associated and now are just sort of part of the experience whenever I teach games.
Nice.
So without further ado,
to jump into this,
Devon, let's do it. So let's start off with, here we go. We want to know Devon's playlist for Can't Stop. Well, stay tuned. He might include it on this video. So, Devon, what do you got for me first? Let's start off with you, your number 5. And how did you rank these in order?
So question.
Yes.
When I sent you the list, did you do my number 5 as the number 1 that I sent? Or did you
No, I did your number 5 as your number 5. I think I put in that right order. If I need to, I can switch it.
I am notoriously bad at ranking anything, which probably, it frustrates Alex to no life or to no end. But I simply use numerical rankings as organizational structures in Word, and I don't actually use them as rankings. So it drives people crazy. But I will just do 5 to 1, like you said, and just recognize, if you're listening or watching, that I love all of them, and I didn't pay any attention to the hierarchy that everybody else does because I'm an idiot. But my number 5 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is an album that I absolutely adore. It's a really, really good album. If you have not listened to it, it's got a fantastic compilation of artists who have contributed, singles to it. And I paired that with Marvel United. I think that it's a very good track to like build energy. And it's fantastic. Oh man, you've got the Spotify link open. I adore this setup visually. So, you've got What's Up Danger, which is a really, really good like kick into the album. And it has like some like pouncing beats and stuff like that. Really, really goes intense to start it off. And then it leads into Sunflower, which is, the most popular one that almost everybody knows, with Post Malone and Sway Lee. And then it has some just really, really, really good hits. Way Up, Familia, and the deluxe version of this album has a couple extras at the bottom. I'm not sure if this is that, where they do some of those other ones. But, oh, man, this is a really, really good album. I listen to this when I exercise as well. Like if I go biking down on the river and stuff like that. I adore this album. It's fantastic. And it's really good at it's a pump up album. So I think that the idea of like energetic superheroes that are like building towards this like climactic fight, I think that this pairs well with that.
I agree with you fully. This playlist is full of bangers. We were totally blindsided by this when it came out in theaters, and the soundtrack was one of the gripping things. One of my favorite things is the fact that they created a lot of this music with this movie in mind. That was the purpose. It was built for the film, and so it evokes all those different scenes from the movie, but also it's applicable to any of those superhero situations. I was talking to Devon before the show, and this is one that barely missed my list. I play this when I'm playing honestly all sorts of games. This is sort of just a hype music. Riot is one that we just love going off to, start a riot, and like you just get this huge amount of energy, whether you're playing Marvel United or Marvel Champions or even things like Zombicide. I found this applicable to, where you're just going off. It feels great as you're just dice chucking and going to town.
And if you scroll down a little bit towards, I'm trying to remember the name of it. Scared of the Dark. Scared of the Dark is like such a good one. In the movie, that's right in line with when he is like overcoming his fears and he's going to join the other, Spider-Verse iterations of Spider-Man, like the other Spider-Man and, Spider people and stuff like that. I love that song, and it's kind of like such a climactic part of that movie. And so that one really has a good build as well within it. I love that one too.
So when you're playing Marvel United, what are the go-to tracks that you go through? Or do you just start at the beginning, starting off with What's Up Danger and just follow the whole through?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that I'm a little bit of like a completionist with albums. I love I think that, I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, like the narrative uh attachment of these songs to the movie makes sense, and it tells a story in a way that not all albums do. But I really like how music, like full albums of it, uh I don't know, like take Imagine Dragons, for example. Everybody has heard Radioactive and Demons. It played on the radio until people wanted to, kill themselves, or like, cover their ears. But within the context of the album, I love those songs because it fits within the rhythm of the whole entire scope of what the artists were trying to do. And so, yeah, I'm a little bit of like, I just like going through an album from beginning to end. If I'm not doing that, if I'm jumping around, I'm jumping around in the sense of having a mixed playlist.
I agree with you fully. There's some Fallout Boy and Muse soundtracks that just the song feeds right into the next one, and it's just
Yep.
one continuous motion, and that's definitely present here. Anything
Yeah.
else you want to talk about when it comes to Into the Spider-Verse or Marvel United?
I mean, I think that both of these are delightful for, similar and different reasons. I like Marvel United a lot, and I originally, even though I liked it a lot, was never going to get into it because I knew that the villains were where I wanted all the diversity from, because of the different ways that it creates goals for the enemies, or goals for the players. And so, because the enemies or the villains had to be grabbed through a lot of the exclusive content on Kickstarter, I just kind of resigned myself to not worrying about getting it. But Alex sent me an extra pledge that he had of the Kickstarter stuff, and I just really, really enjoyed it. I have played it a lot with my son, played it a lot with Alex up in Cleveland, and yeah, I think that just like the feeling of Into the Spider-Verse, the soundtrack, Marvel United kind of like builds up towards a climax where you start to get to the point where you're running out of those cards, you're running out of your hero cards, you're running out of the enemy threat deck cards, and you're kind of coming to this point of tension, and so I think that works well with the music.
Excellent. So that is number 5 for Devon. That is the Into the Spider-Verse album paired with Marvel United. So we'll go ahead and jump to my number 5 here. And this is, I don't know if anybody knows this group. They're actually Texas-based. This is Khruangbin. And my pairing for this game is Mind Management. So do you know who Khruangbin is?
I mean, Khruangbin sounds. So I've recently read the Mind Management novel, and Khruangbin sounds like a Nepalese village that I, haven't heard of, where all of this like hallucinogenic monk stuff happens in that game. So I haven't heard of it, but it sounds trippy.
So you sort of hit the nail on the head. The whole idea behind the soundtrack is it's psychedelic rock or funk, or I don't know exactly how to describe this music, but it is an exploration, and this is how they self-describe themselves, of a single box, a rock box that they explore in. So it's a group of 3 that just riff, and it's so cool how they are able to take a single stream of music consciousness and then just explore in it. It reminds me a lot of the ideas behind jazz, but added to this psychedelic funk. And I think it fits perfectly in the mind management world. A lot of the times in the game, you're going to be moving from place to place and just exploring, going from this in this cityscape. And Mordechai, this is one of the album that I'm putting out here. All of their music here takes a piece of music and just runs with it. And that's what I feel like when I'm playing Mind Management, is that I'm running through streets, I'm frantically searching, but this gives me a peaceful, calm tone. Now, if you're wondering why we're not playing any of this music, it's blatantly for copyright strikes. Our video gets super demonetized, and not about that. So definitely take a look at this on your own time. But this one here is truly excellent. It's a unique sound, and I think it's something that you should give a try, just in general. Pelota is one of my favorites on this album, and in general, every single album has this same idea, this concept of exploration. Now, as mentioned before, when pairing with Mind Management has that focus on the same thing, exploration in a familiar space, and I think that's shown in this soundtrack as well. I really love the feeling that you get in mind management as you're tapping into your surroundings, being cognizant of sort of everything. And this soundtrack adds to almost the chaos and the calm at the same time. And I think it's such a compelling way to play the game. So that's my number 5. That is Khruangbin for mind.
I'll have to check that out the next time that I play. I mean, I love mind management. I think it's a delightful game for sure. Oh man, it's yeah, that seems like the perfect pairing.
If you're looking for something a little bit smaller, they have some EPs that are out there as well. Texas Moon is another good one, but Mordechai is one of their biggest hits, and I just love the different influence they take for each album, and it gives its own unique feel. So that's my number 5. That is Khruangbin for mind management.
Sweet. My number 4 is a compilation of multiple Star Wars soundtracks, and it is for use alongside Star Wars Rebellion, because I adore Star Wars Rebellion. It is a chunky 2-player extravaganza that is probably, I think, maybe the best. Sorry, that was hurting my head. Probably the best representation of a movie or existing IP story and its representation in a board game version. I think mind management is probably the best one I have played since Star Wars Rebellion in terms of really getting a sense of its source material. But Star Wars Rebellion is fantastic. I really, really like how it feels to play in those asymmetric sides. You've got the Rebellion, you've got the Empire. The Empire is just spreading across all of those planetary systems and has a overwhelming military presence. And then the Rebellion are trying to hide and create and sabotage along the way. And you can't play a Star Wars game and not listen to Star Wars music. I couldn't not pair these two together. It just made sense. You got John Williams, and you got to respect the master whenever you can. There's only a few of them that you just can't not listen to. John Williams, Hans Zimmer, and a couple of the other ones are up there. But yeah, it's listening to John Williams if I'm playing a Star Wars game.
Just looking at this list here, there are so many amazing pieces. Duel of the Fates, Star Wars title. You just go down this list and they're all bangers.
And it's they have an insane number of albums in there. Like the original one, I thought it was just a couple, but that's got the Phantom Menace. It's Attack of the.
This is everything.
It's everything. It's got the Clone Wars. It's got Star Wars Rebels in it. It's got Andor. It's got Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh my gosh.
It is an insanely big. I thought it was just some of the main movies, and then it was like, no, we literally put everything Star Wars in here. So it keeps scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
Holy cow. Now, if you were to point to a couple of Star Wars soundtracks or Star Wars tracks, which are your favorites or some of your favorites?
I like any of them that are positioned around a time in the show when they're revealing a new world. And it doesn't really matter which one it is. Like if they're showing Hoth for the first time, or if they're just showing Tatooine, those kind of landscape reveals and long distant character focuses generally have just kind of that atmospheric background music. And I think that they do a good job of creating kind of alien feeling and also familiar emotions that you're evoking while seeing something that is completely foreign to what you normally know. So, obviously the classics are all nice, anything that's tied around major lightsaber duels or the themes or the Imperial March. All of those are kind of classic, but I really do like the kind of environmental ones.
That totally makes sense. I have to agree with you, and we'll see this later on the list of things that put you in that world, I think make for amazing soundtracks. Anything else on this one, Devon?
If you haven't played Star Wars Rebellion, take the 4 hours that it requires and go play it. It's such a good game. Have you
Give it
played
a
it?
try. That learn to play guide is super helpful. Yes, I've actually played
Yeah.
this multiple times, even with my wife. She got to play as
Nice.
the
Nice.
rebels. She liked the hiding positions. That was
Yeah.
fun. The Empire does feel pretty crushing because you're like,
Yeah.
ooh, here's my development line of all of my incoming ships
Yeah.
after you dominate so many planets. Oh, it feels great.
No, I will say that like classic FFG, there are things that bother me, like the cardboard trough where you just dump everything in the
Yeah.
middle of it originally. But the one thing that I always felt that they did well was the splitting the learn to play booklet and the rules reference. I think that is such a smooth way to get yourself into a game without getting bogged down. Like, I'm thinking of the numerically pointed out rule book of like root or something like that,
Yeah.
where it's just like super dense. But Star Wars Rebellion is so good.
Agreed. Totally. So that is Devon's number 4. That is Star Wars soundtracks paired with Star Wars Rebellion. Now, I sort of like the way that we've been doing this, talking about the games first and then getting to the soundtrack after. So I think we're going to adopt that for the rest of this video. So my number 4 is for the board game Vagrant Song. Now, Vagrant Song has become one of my new favorite campaign games as an experience that you can just jump into. It's not something that I have to commit and get myself back into the story. It's a single session that I can pull up, open, make some progress with, put away, and then pull up again. But the world of Vagrant Song is truly what makes it awesome. This has you playing as vagrants aboard a soul train as you're trying to restore the humanity to these terrible haints. You do so through punching them up or restoring their humanity while not trying to lose your own. There's a scenario that's going to put you into the role of these characters and then interacting with them in unique ways. The terrain pieces, just the way that the different haints, the spirits operate. And one of my favorite ways to play this is with the soundtrack of Over the Garden Wall in the background. Now, if you aren't familiar with it,
I don't know this. Yeah.
Okay, this is good. I've got all these new music for you. So Over the Garden Wall here is a classic animated series from Cartoon Network. I think this is about 12 years old at this point. Elijah Wood plays the title character, but it feels like an old-timely folk tale. And I think it's one that more people need to give a watch. I only recently watched it myself here about 4 years ago. My friends Levi and Natalie showed me it, and this has become one of our traditions now. This is something that we watch together every single fall. But the whole premise of this is it takes this world of I don't want to get into too much because I don't want to give any spoilers if you haven't seen it, but it takes this creepy, mystical world where all this crazy stuff is happening, and it puts it to beautiful folk music that each song tells a story from each of the episodes of this show. Now, the shows themselves are these small little 10-minute snippets, and so the music you get follows the same feature where each maybe 3 or 4 tracks is set to one episodes. They have this unique feel, but they also have this overarching vibe that they share as you go from each of the different landscapes. And I think that fits very well with Vagrant Song because you're also going to be doing the same thing there. Have a single session and you'll go through having this creepy, spooky vibe, but also having this music to go with it. Now, the reason this is a little bit lower on the list is because some of the songs are certainly out of nowhere and you're like, okay, that doesn't really jive with what's going on. But when it does come on, you have a great time singing along, or you're like, this is hilarious. And it may not completely jive, but most of the other stuff is filled with banjo, accordion, guitar, and you're listening to a combination of folksy bluegrass with modern indie music, and it makes for an experience that you are going to want to continue to listen to during the session.
Now
So,
I'm curious about. So I've played Vagrant Song and I really like it. It's a very fun game. I've got it sequestered back in that cabinet there, but I have not watched Over the Garden Wall, and now I want to. That sounds like a good one to watch.
It's wonderful. And there's some making of documentaries that show you just the groups playing music and jamming, doing like their own jam sessions. And it's just a vibe that I enjoy. I love it. Just a warm, fuzzy feeling as you're getting this modern take on like a very classic Grimm's fairy tale. And it's truly wonderful. If you haven't, this is probably my highest recommendation out of all these soundtracks to go take a listen to, or even go check out the show. I think it's good for all ages, and there's something.
I'll do show and then listen afterwards.
I recommend that strongly. I teach a unit on this show for my English as a second language class because I think it's pretty important as children can connect it to the different fables from their own experiences. It's pretty dang cool. I like this one.
That's nice. Nice.
So
awesome.
That is my number 4. That is Over the Garden Wall soundtrack for Vagrant Song.
Okay, nice. My number 3 is it's actually, I think, the exact crossover that you have as well. And even to the extent that the second game that you listed, I also listed originally, and then I was like, I haven't played it, so I can't put it on there. But I
What?
was like, so yeah, exactly. I
What?
know. So mine is A Feast for Odin, and paired with the soundtrack to the official show Vikings, which my wife watched and enjoyed a lot, and I listened to it through the indirect way that you listen to anything that your partner is
Yeah.
watching, where you can't escape it because it's in the same place as you. Now I paired it with A Feast for Odin, but this is, at the end of the day, a Euro game, and it is much more maybe like methodical and strategy dense in terms of the mechanical manipulation of the game, rather than kind of like the thematic surging of how you feel while you're playing it. The game that I did not put on here was Blood Rage, which is the one that when I thought about Feast for Odin and Vikings, I was like, oh, well, I should pick Blood Rage instead. But I haven't played Blood Rage yet. I own it, I just haven't played it yet. No, for sure, this is a fabulous game. I really, really like Feast for Odin. And even though some of the Viking soundtrack is going to be more pulsing, it's going to be more action heavy, it's going to be more cinematic and blood stirring than maybe you would expect while playing a polyomino worker placement game like Feast for Odin. It's thematically connected. You're Vikings. And I couldn't say Blood Rage in good conscience because I haven't played it yet. But I totally meant Blood Rage.
Rest assured, this would be a good pick for Blood Rage. Now, that
Okay.
being said, I did do a couple of listens over of your soundtracks before we began, and there are a couple of soundtracks here that are truly serene. They're
Yeah.
calm. It's the calm before the storm, and that's sort of the feeling I get when I play Feast for Odin, is I
Sure.
am
For
at
sure.
that part in the village where everybody has come back from their big raids, and I'm just shoving all the things we stole and pillaged into different places.
Yeah, you're just playing like Marie Kondo
Yeah.
with the with the spoils of war. Uh,
That's a great way to put it. But I'm sure we'll talk about more Viking music and tie those ties into Blood Rage later on this list.
nice.
Excellent.
That's my number 3.
We have some more comments here. And what they're saying is you'll need to play some Blood Rage on BGA.
I do. I
Devin,
need
if
to
you
play
haven't
Blood Rage
played it,
desperate. I know.
that's a
I
potential
know.
displacement for your Forbidden Stars there.
Oh snap!
I got to tell you that much. That's my favorite area control game, Blood Rage.
Wow.
It's amazing. Truly is. It's some of the best combat in board games.
That excites me. That excites me.
It's truly great. So let's go ahead and move to my number 3. My number 3 is a take on something completely different. And this is one I think a lot more people will know. This is my number 3, the game Etherfields. And my pairing is for Muse. Now, there is a...
That's a good... I think that's a good pairing. I haven't played Etherfields, but I know it because I researched it a lot. And so, yeah, I like that.
So Etherfields takes you into a dreamscape, and that's the entire concept, is you're jumping from different dream to different dream. New experiences, new things, but they truly are based on dreams and nightmares. And that's the feeling that I get when I am exploring the world, is that I'm going off on a journey. And the soundtrack that really puts me into that is Simulation Theory from Muse. Now, really quick, if you are unfamiliar with Etherfields, you have a character that serves as your dreamer as you go through these large dreams, and you eventually make it back to this hub world where you have these smaller mini encounters. In each mini encounter, you'll be collecting cards and starting to play them to prep you for those main large dreams. But then you enter the gigantic dream, and it's up to you to solve the puzzle that's present using the cards and the different experiences that you've picking up. Now, the soundtrack itself, though, Simulation Theory, is based on retro 70s and 80s music. And this one in particular is, it just feels like I am in motion whenever I am listening to this soundtrack. Like my character is flying through this dreamscape as this pulsating synth is pushing me forward from objective to objective. And that's the feeling that I get when I play this one. And I think that it's a perfect pairing, honestly. The first track sets the stage with the pulsating sounds, and then you get closer and closer to this objective and the thing that you're searching for as the album progresses. It's got some amazing covers as well at the end with like junior high and high school bands that are doing some of the soundtracks, and you can truly appreciate Muse's musical style in this album, I feel, and just how far they've come, because they've been writing music for at least 15 years now, and it's insane the detail that they put into crafting it. Ariana, my wife, and I, we will constantly be listening and just sit there and just get floored by the dedication that they have to this. And I've seen them work with choirs and the backup groups and their vocalists and instrumentalists, and the precise vision that they have for each song, and it's pretty incredible. So some of my favorites on this one are Algorithm. I think that's amazing. Pressure and Propaganda, Thought Contagion, and then I think the UCLA Bruin Marching Band cover of Pressure is amazing. I love that so much. So honestly, this is one of those tracks that we were describing earlier with Into the Spider-Verse, where you listen to it from start to finish, and then you stay for all the bonus tracks because of how invested you are already and just how much
that's
you're
awesome.
it.
I'm excited to listen to that album now. I'll have to do that next.
Have you not heard this?
I've not heard that album.
Oh my goodness! So you've got homework today. Oh,
I do have homework. I have to watch Over the Garden Wall, and I'll have to listen to some. I'll listen to it when I'm driving on the weekend.
This is perfect.
I've got a long drive ahead of me, so I'll stock myself up on the music.
Excellent. Do you listen to any Muse outside of just in general?
It's been a while since I've listened to them like recently, but over the course of like the tenure of time in which I've moved through a lot of different music, I have listened to them and enjoyed them quite a bit. I mean, if I poked through my list of stuff, Muse is in here somewhere.
Good.
Where is it?
Second Law, and they just recently dropped a new album, Will of the People, and that has been excellent. So that came out last August, I think.
Definitely have to listen to that. No, I'm trying to remember. They're in here somewhere. Oh man, now I'm looking back at my music from all these years. I need to go listen to some music. Oh goodness, man, I love music so much.
It's fantastic. All right, Devon, let's get on to number 2.
Okay, number 2 for me is in my mind because I want to play the remake of the game that just came out, and it is Deadspace soundtrack paired with Nemesis the board game. So Nemesis the board game I purchased and actually got rid of because I didn't have a good experience with it when I played with someone else's copy, and it is probably the thing I got rid of that I regret the most. I desperately want Nemesis back because I want to give it another chance playing it in some of the other modes. I want to play it cooperatively. I want to check out the Untold Stories. It's such in my wheelhouse thematically, and also I just had a bad experience the first time I played it, and I'd like to give it another go. So you obviously love this game. I see it's rated 10 for you out of 10. So I can tell that you love it. But yeah, I really, really want to get this back, and I just haven't yet. And I thought that nothing could be better paired with alien monsters coming at you in close hallways, other than the obvious choice of Alien, than my favorite horror video game, which is Deadspace. And the Deadspace soundtrack, really, if you're unaware of the game, Deadspace is a experience where you are an engineer, part of a crew that comes to a derelict ship that has sent out like an SOS call, and you go to investigate it, and you are not alone, and you have to kill things, and it is a horrifying, paralyzing, petrifying, delightful experience that you must play with headphones so that your blood pressure goes through the roof and to where you can't ever sleep again. You absolutely have to play it with headphones, but it's very atmospheric. very tension tension ridden throughout the entire thing. I mean, it's one of those soundtracks where you rarely ever relax. You're kind of just on edge the whole time, and it pairs with the game. And I think Trevor Garekis did a fantastic job on creating the soundtrack here. And so I thought it just was the perfect thing to go along with Nemesis.
I think this is an excellent choice. I was listening to this for the first time, actually, about 20 minutes ago, and it brings the tension from the very first track. And I think that's huge. In the original Alien soundtrack, I was listening back to that. There's a lot of silent buildup, just ominous music, not necessarily pressure. And that's maybe for the first hour of it until you start to see things going crazy. And so normally we would play the Alien soundtrack when we played Nemesis. Started to move to things like Prometheus, where the music has been ratcheted up a little bit to match with the tension and the projection of this terrifying experience. But I thought this was particularly eerie, scary, made me feel like something was there. And it uses the like high pitch, like, I don't even know how to describe it, strings orchestra that's like playing into like, it's coming. That's what it feels like. Oh man.
It's definitely I mean, that game is just it's so well done. It's so well done. I know that it's probably not the perfect, there's a remake of it that's out now. There's a remake of it that's available there where they did a massive graphic overhaul. They adjusted some of the gameplay mechanics to where it didn't feel maybe as old. And then also they added a little bit of story elements that weren't there originally. And so I'm really eager to jump back into it. But I agree, it is tension from the get-go. Other than the opening cinematic, I mean, you get in there and you automatically see there are problems in this, and it's really, really, really good. And it does not let its finger off the pulse almost at all.
And I think that matches with Nemesis, because the opening of that game is your crewmate is dead. There's a dead person in the room you just woke up in. And you're like, oh my gosh, we got to figure out what's going on right now. I'm glad you brought this up. And it seems that most of the commenters agree with you. Excellent choice with Deadspace.
Nice.
And real quick, I do want to mention, we do love Nemesis here. We even have a whole holiday about it called Nemesismas. So we celebrate Nemesismas yearly and try to make it out alive. So this year I did survive the first victory of Nemesis lockdown. So it had been a whole year and nobody had won it in like the 25 plays of it we had. And two of us finally got it in with friendship. It was great. Cooperative all the
friendship.
way. One person's goal was keep another person alive, and then my goal was to make sure that like the ship didn't blow up, the base didn't explode or something like that. Wow. And so we were just super cooperative, and us too, we did it. It was so
well. Maybe I need to come visit in Colorado to where I can get in some Nemesis time with a true fan group.
You're always welcome to join our Nemesis Miss. There's room at the table.
Because everyone's dead.
That's right. Everyone's dead at Nemesis Miss. Excellent. So that is Devon's number 2. That is Deadspace soundtrack for Nemesis. Now, my number 2, I won't go too much into because we did talk about it a little bit already, but this is for the board game Blood Rage, specifically Ragnarok Duo. Now, Ragnarok Duo is just a group of 2 that their goal is to create and keep alive traditional Viking music. And they do this through just the pair of them going off with their traditional instruments. And it's pretty dang impressive. Now, the reason that pairs so well with Blood Rage to me is because of the switch between intense, like almost battlefield music and then ponderous, thoughtful music. And if you're familiar with Blood Rage starts off with a draft. And in that draft, that's that pondering music where you're sitting there, everybody's picking up their cards, thinking, and you've got this drum beating slowly in the background as it's swaying and everyone's getting their cards. And then that immediately switches off into the area control portion when you're sending out your huge miniatures onto the board to start pillaging and raiding and fighting. This is amazing. So the pairing between those two is perfect to me.
And I want to play so bad.
It is truly amazing. I think that Blood Rage's combat system, drafting the entire time is engaging. You're always active on everybody's turn. The turns are lightning quick, and with the music here, you will be that much more engrossed. Now, some of my favorite parts about this is that it does retain that Nordic folk music and the Viking folk music. So you have a lot of traditional songs here, and you can even look up the lyrics to these because they are pretty well known in this community who's engaged and interested in it. And so you can learn, you can sing along, and it's kind of intense. And there's a lot of great ukulele music. And this one and my number one, sometimes I will pull up my ukulele and we'll jam out to some songs as we're doing
That's
it.
cool.
It is fun. I like this track a lot. So anything on here is wonderful. The intro sets that pace of that Melodice drum beats, and then it goes into the traditional Viking lyricism, and then bringing out the instruments to pair with as well. So that's my number 2 Ragnarok duo pairing with Blood Rage.
Man, now you just Nemesis and Blood Rage. Now I just have to play. Now. You've just been too good of an advocate, and now I'm wanting to do it.
Yep, and we've got some other commenters. Never had a bad game of Nemesis. Great experience, win or lose. I gotta agree with you here. I'll have to get it back. You've got it. If you listen to the Danheim channel on YouTube, I have not listened to them. If they have more of something similar to that, I'd be very interested in listening to them. So it's very Viking. Excellent. So that's just more things. Now I have some homework, which is excellent. Awesome.
I feel like I have more homework. I've got to play Blood Rage. I've got to get Nemesis back, and I've got to listen to 2 different soundtracks now.
Just add a pit stop on your way back from Tennessee. Come stop by Colorado. We'll get those played.
Sounds good. This is a small pit stop.
Yeah, that's it. It's a slight detour. Barely an inconvenience.
I am going to go ahead and continue my time in space. And my number 1 is going to be, I think, maybe my most unexpected soundtrack pairing, but a good fit for the game. And the game is Unsettled, and the soundtrack is In Other Waters. Unsettled is a delightful cooperative experience that I have just recently had the opportunity to play. I had some friends come over, the friends who actually live in Pueblo, not too far from you, Mackenzie, and they came to visit, and they taught us the game. And this feels like Pandemic on steroids in terms of a cooperative game in which you have a imperative to survive, but the way in which you do that is going to seem possibly out of reach or possibly difficult to achieve at first glance. And it really is just a matter of you trying to leverage as many of your skills as possible to push forward the agenda that you have to investigate the planet that you're on and get out alive. But it is also a very visually thematic game in which you are investigating something foreign. You're seeing a realm that you are not used to, and there is something magical about it and something serene, as you mentioned, I think previously with one of the other titles that we talked about. And it really is. In Other Waters, if you're not familiar with it, is a video game that I played on the Switch. And it is a scientist who is investigating this planet. And it's a very abstracted exploration game and somewhat top down, but it's got, haunting is not the right word for it, but it's got curiously tranquil. It's a little bit mesmerizing and kind of lulls you into this like trance maybe. And it's very peaceful and exotic, and it just felt like it matched well with the idea of a scientifically minded exploration, which is ultimately what you are doing in Unsettled. Even if there is adversity, it's not necessarily violent in the way that something like Nemesis is. I think frequently the theme of a sci-fi is aliens are trying to kill you. And that works really, really well for the most part. But I think Unsettled took a daring and exciting little different look at it and was like, what if other things could kill you, or what if you just simply not being smart enough could kill you? And I think that In Other Waters was a nice pairing for that. I like it, and it's peaceful as well.
I thought the soundtrack was amazing. This was instantly my favorite one that you had recommended. It
Awesome.
puts an
I'm glad.
emphasis
Yeah.
on the sci-fi environment. And I think
Mhm.
that's so cool because I think you said it well with Unsettled, where they're giving you a chance to explore the entire ecosystem. And this is the soundtrack I think I've been looking for, which is amazing. That said, I'm so happy that you recommended this. I've been
Awesome.
playing a lot of Far Away recently, which is
Okay.
another space exploration game, and it's another board game, and I was looking for soundtracks that had this sort of feel. So I would just look up on YouTube, like, okay, give me a strange alien planet background music, or things like Interstellar. Not quite what I'm looking for. I don't want this crazy, like, going hard on the piano, like super
Yeah.
crazy overture. I don't really need that. But this is, I think you said it really well with its curious space exploration, and that's perfect. This is exactly
Yeah.
what I was looking for.
Nice. I'm glad that it was a good crossover, or a good cross germination of music
Mhm.
taste, so to speak.
Yep, going straight into my playlist here. Absolutely.
Nice. Nice. What is your number one?
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to it. So my number one here is definitely the most fun I have with just music and board games in general, and pretty much everybody I think feels the same way. Who knows? Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm lost in the moment. My number one has got to be sea shanties for Maracaibo. So Maracaibo is one of my favorite games, period. And sea shanties, and I'll just put Longest Johns here. They're pretty well known. It's
Sea
perfect. It is
shanties.
so good. And when you're playing Maracaibo, nothing screams getting a pirate ship, filling it with crewmates, and sailing around like some good old fashioned sea shanties. So if you're unfamiliar with Maracaibo, this is one of the best Euro games, period. You're building up this engine of cards in front of you in the form of crewmates. You're taking those crewmates, sailing to different islands, participating in combat, influencing the populace, and making a bit of coin along the way. You've got objectives that drive you, but the core here is that exploration and that building up of that engine, but it takes place in the form of building up a crew and a ship in front of you. So the game itself is an exploration. You're moving around, you're traveling the seas, you're interacting, you're going on quests, you're fighting, abstracted into different tiles and components, but retaining the experience and the feel of a true mercenary during these Caribbean colonial times. So the Longest Johns, though, is a group that has definitely hit their mark recently. I think in 2020 was their biggest year. There was a big TikTok trend with some of their songs.
The pandemic, and sea shanties.
It was a thing, and I will give credit to this. Like, I don't mean to be a hipster or anything, but I was definitely listening to them before they were cool, which is hilarious. And I think it actually had to do with I picked up a copy of Assassin's Creed, Black Flag, and was jamming
Oh,
out to the sea shanties in that.
yeah.
Oh, it was
There
so
you go.
good. And there was a lot of I guess, cross tracks when
Ah,
you see
their
different
Haul
groups.
Away Joe is a really good one. Yeah.
Agreed. Santiana, their Spanish ladies, everything they have on here is just like the classic sea shanty, but it's done so well in
Mhm.
pretty much a all a cappella format on this album in particular. And when you're sitting with a group of people, just a simple ukulele or playing it on the background, people are willing to get into it and start head bobbing and jamming to the soundtrack. They add a lot of more music to their other albums, but I think this one is very much that core sea shanty experience. And I think it's perfect. That this is one of my favorite things to listen
Nice.
to when
Nice.
playing pirate games. And I think Maracaibo is the best pirate game. So that's my number one. That is the Longest Johns for Maracaibo. Oh, I
That's
love this so
now I
much.
want to listen to some sea shanties.
Yes. So Shred Me Too says, you guys are listening to such great board games. I wonder if there's a relationship between games that play well with the soundtrack and greatness. And I think this is huge from yourself, the importance of theme. Yes, it's huge. If a theme can shine in a game, usually you're going to be pretty dang invested in that game. And the fact that the music can pair so perfectly with that just means that it's there. It's apparent you can
Mhm.
make those connections, and the gameplay facilitates that experience. Amazing. What is your
Well,
favorite
that's a
sea
solid
shanty? Do you
list.
have a favorite one?
Ah, um, we so the friends that live pretty close to you, we did a sea shanty night one night, and we just got some drinks and some food, and we met up digitally online, and we just sang sea shanties while getting increasingly more intoxicated, and it was a delightful time. It was truly a delightful time, and we went ahead and I think we also did a Burns night too. So sometimes I mix up the sea shanty nights with with the Burns night. But man, no, I'm trying to remember. I think Holloway, 3 or 4 on that album are ones that I listened to a lot, because I didn't really have a connection with sea shanties prior to the pandemics and social media push on TikTok when they became such a big thing. But there's some really solid ones on there on that album. I like them a lot.
I agree fully. Some of my go-tos are on this one for sure. I think Go to See No More is one that's not on this one that I think people need to listen to. It is a bop. So anytime where you can just like sing at the top of your lungs and it's like acceptable is so much fun to me. And I think that this does a really good job of it.
Nice.
This is a great question here from Balna Craig Games saying, are you able to link these recommendations in the description or something similar? I will be timestamping the video after we're finished here. So obviously I'm in the middle of the video, so I don't know how long it's going to take. So I'll do that when we're finished. So definitely take a look in the description after we're finished here. But yes, it will be there. All right, so that's it. Those are our top 10 playlists for board games. Now, before we wrap up, Devon, I do have a couple quick questions for you. Were there any soundtrack or board games that barely missed your list that you want to talk about quickly?
Oof. I had an honorable mention, which is kind of a cheat, but because it's all encompassing. But there is a website. They may have an app as well, but it's called Melodice. And you just type in the name of a game, and it has a a community curated playlist of a bunch of different games or a bunch of different songs that you can check out. And so, if you want some horror music, you can play, Mansions of Madness, and you put that in there and you fill that out, and then it shows you pretty much everything that you need. And it's a really cool system if you want to try to find a customly crafted title blades. Like, I imagine this is going to have some awesome exploration stuff. You've got Summoner's War, you've got some Chrono Cross in there, League of Legends, Moana. So it does a really good job of assimilating a compilation of music that could work well. So that is one that I think works. And then other ones that barely missed. I Lord of the Rings soundtrack is one that, I have a record player. It's on the other side of the wall in the living room, and I have vinyl records for all of those. I thought for a moment that you just happened to have the vinyl records of Lord of the Rings, and I thought you were just pulling them out while I was talking about them, just out of coincidence.
That would be amazing. And just right here, just
outside. And then it was just a dog, and I was expecting a vinyl, and I was like, "Oh, that's a dog." So, Lord of the Rings barely missed, and I just decided to go with Star Wars instead because I prefer Star Wars Rebellion to something like War of the Ring. So I went with Star Wars rather than Lord of the Rings.
Maybe War of the Ring, the card game, will change your mind. I hope listening.
So. I'm really excited for that.
I do end up listening a lot to the Lord of the Rings soundtracks when I play Too Many Bones, actually. I think there's some excellent like Shire music that represents you're just chilling in your town before you go out on your quest. And then you get into some scurries with the Uruk-hai and the Nazgul that represents those early encounters. It's got some pretty great escalation in it. So I like those a lot.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to check that out whenever I'm doing Too Many Bones. That's good. What about you? Were there any that just missed?
A couple. There was Havili by Tevaka. I used to live in Hawaii before I moved to Colorado, and so got to listen to a lot of Polynesian music. And so they actually have a couple songs that are in Moana, and they have just a bunch of Pacific Island fusion. And so I play that a lot when I play Spirit Island. So I think that's a pretty good dream there. Yeah. It feels like I'm there. Like I'm back on the island. It feels great. And then the other one that I wanted to mention was Lovecraft Country, the soundtrack from there. So not necessarily the Lovecraft Country soundtrack, but the music that is apparent in there has been awesome. So it's just this 1920s jazz all the way up to the 1940s, and it feels like I'm in that time period, and it's so good. If you haven't watched Lovecraft Country, I recommend the first episode.
Yeah,
the
I
rest
haven't
of
watched
the
it
season
yet.
is but that first episode is true Arkham horror, and it feels amazing. Thank you, M, for the super sticker. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And then the last honorable mention I have is Arcane soundtrack, and that is for League of Legends. So that is Arcane, or just the League of Legends music in general, for these head-to-head skirmish games. So I've been playing a lot of Super Fantasy Brawl and a lot of Guards of Atlantis 2 recently, and that soundtrack is perfect for those games, as you are bringing up your people, cramming into each other, and it feels great to just smash heads to this excellent music. So I'm enjoying that as well.
Yeah, nice. I'll have to check out Lovecraft Country. Yeah, I'm interested in that. Now, for some reason, you made me think about Watchmen on HBO Max as well. That was really good.
Ooh, that show was really good. Very timely too. It came out like the perfect time when all the things that we're talking about literally happened like a year later. It was insane.
Yeah.
But excellent shows, excellent music, and excellent company. Thank you so much, Devon, for being here and for the collab in general. Once again, I'm going to recommend that you go take a look over at Devon's channel, Devon Talks Tabletop.
Appreciate it.
So you've got lots of stuff coming up, I'm sure, along the way. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Excellent time. Great.
Yeah,
anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up, Devon?
No, I mean, just thank you so much for having me, and thanks for the recommendations. I've got some stuff that I need to listen to. Over the Garden Wall to watch, and then I need to listen to what was the other one that I'm missing? It was Over the Garden Wall, and then it was
Over the Garden Wall, Mordechai by Khruangbin.
That's right.
Muse, Simulation Theory.
Muse, Simulation Theory. One that, as soon as you said that, I was like, how have I not listened to that yet? So
the new one, Will of the People, is pretty dang good. Oh frick, I'm already forgetting. Revolution? I don't even know what it's called anymore. There's one that honestly gives me some like Bohemian Rhapsody vibes, which is crazy.
Okay.
It's good stuff. I'm a big fan.
Okay. And well, I appreciate all the feed. Gonna eat it up.
You've added to my playlist selection. So these are definitely albums I'm bringing, particularly your soundtrack for Unsettled. What was it called again?
In Other
Waters.
Is
the game good? Do you like the game?
Yeah, it's a good game. Okay. It's a peaceful game. It's a very peaceful game. But it's a good one too. It's a little philosophical, but I like it a lot.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much, everybody who's commenting. Balna Craig Games, thank you for engaging. Brian T, thank you for being here. We've got the Unemployed Lawyer. Thank you for the stream. Thank you for being here. Streb Me, great conversation. Thank you. Thank you for everybody that was here for the stream and just for joining us and joining on this discussion. If you're watching this after the stream, I'm so curious. What are your favorite board games paired with music? Things that we should check out. Of course, I've got to go check out Danheim after the stream because that's some more excellent Viking music, but I'm just curious to hear what you think and what you thought of our picks and our pairings. But thank you so much for watching. Side Game Strong, y'all.
See you guys.